26.
Some breaking news out of Tempe. Herm Edwards officially out as the head coach for Arizona State. Nick Borgia here alongside publisher Ho Urbino to break down this breaking news. We just heard from Ray Anderson just a few seconds ago, heard some of his comments, but does the timing of all this surprise you, given with what happened less than 24 hours ago on the football field?
Yeah, I think that's the question everybody's asking, Nick. As surprising as this loss to Eastern Michigan was, like you said, less than 24 hours ago, what about the timing of Herm Edwards and Arizona State parting ways? Is that just as much of a surprise? And it's one of those, I guess, yes-no answers, if you will, because obviously this is the lowest point in the Herm Edwards tenure. I mean, you and I were at Stillwater just a week ago, and we saw an Arizona State that did lose to then number 11 Oklahoma State, but we definitely saw some encouraging signs. We definitely saw something the Sun Devils could build on for the rest of their way. And here they are coming in a week later, facing the Eastern Michigan team where the Sun Devils were 3-touchdown favored. And not only did they lose, Nick, and granted it was not a 3-touchdown loss by any means, but the way they got manhandled, I think ultimately that was just really too much for supporters of the program and really for the administration, University President Dr. Michael Crow and Athletic Director Ray Anderson, to really stomach, if you will. Now, I think the surprise is that you are heading into Pac-12 play. You really kind of wonder, even if you're getting a new interim head coach, and Arizona State is, and running backs coach Sean Iguano, how much can really change for this upcoming week? I mean, you're starting Pac-12 play with arguably the best team in the conference. Oh, and by the way, not only are they ranked number 13 in this new AP Top 25 poll, the next week you're traveling to USC. They're ranked number 7. The week after that, which is the last game before the bye, you're hosting Washington. They're ranked number 18 after their upset win against Michigan State. So you're basically really facing a murderer's row, if you will, of a schedule. And I thought that maybe the bye week coming after that Washington contest may have been like a clean break to make any changes. But I just feel that what we saw yesterday, now ASU losing a game they had absolutely no business losing, but the way they lost, and you can tune into our post-game analysis. We detailed everything that we saw, all the reasons why Arizona State lost the way they did on Saturday night. I think it was just one of those really no return points, and a change in leadership was needed. Ray Anderson talked about this being a mutual decision between him and Herm Edwards. Obviously, Ray Anderson and Herm Edwards go a long ways back. The reason Herm Edwards was hired some 5 years ago was only because of a relationship with Ray Anderson. And here we are 5 years later talking about a new head coach being in Tempe.
And you mentioned it briefly, former running backs coach Sean Iguano promoted to being the interim head coach here at ASU. What's your reaction to that promotion?
Yeah, honestly, I felt that if there's going to be any hire from within, whether it be an interim head coach or even a permanent position in 2023, that Sean Iguano was definitely a very strong candidate. He did have a great career here coaching one of the powerhouse high school programs in the Valley in Chandler High School. Yes, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that being a head coach of a high school team is nowhere close to being a head coach of a college team, but I think he's a assistant coach that really has a lot of respect of his players, obviously very well known in the local community. And I also think you just make that calculated estimation, Nick, that who's going to be here in 2023, whether it be a permanent head coach, whether it be just an assistant coach, the near future or beyond that. So I think that with Sean Iguano, it really was a natural hire. And look, I mean, nobody's expecting Sean Iguano to march ASU to a 9-0 record in Pac-12 play and play in Pasadena on January 1st. But nonetheless, when you just talk about really the best available option you have right now. Also, I would say somebody, Nick, that doesn't have that many Herm Edwards ties, like a Brian Billick, like a Marv Lewis. I think it really just made a lot of sense to hire Sean Iguano. And again, I'm sure that the ASU fans who have really been up in arms since last night may not really agree with this personnel decision as well, but just keep it in perspective. It is an interim head coach. I'm not saying that he has 0% chance of being the permanent head coach in 2023, but I think all circumstances considered, it really is a good hire for Arizona State. And honestly, It's just in a situation that right now, if you just have a change in leadership, is that enough to really rally the troops, so to speak, and face the absolute brutal stretch of their schedule? We'll see. But all in all, I have no problems with the hire of Sean Iguano as the interim head coach. And again, that's something that I felt was going to be in the works for a long time if Herm Edwards were to leave the program before the end of the 2022 season. And here we are on Sunday, being that a reality.
Well, that potential new head coach hire will be an interesting one to follow, but let's take a step back, and it's only been 5 years since Herm has been here. 5 years ago, ASU was in the same boat, trying to find that new head coach. How do you think this period of time, differs with that period of time? Is there a lot of differences that you are anticipating?
Well, look, I just feel that, first of all, if we're to sum up the Herm Edwards era, I think it's been a very disappointing era. I mean, sure, he's leaving with a winning record, never had a losing record during his time in Tempe. Even in that wacky COVID year, he still went 2-2. But when you came with the lofty expectations of being the pro model and really being the envy of the Pac-12, if not of all of college football, just with your operational procedures, if you will. When you talked about Ray Anderson, so when he fired Todd Graham, he talked about his expectations, the bar of expectations, I should say, for this football program being much, much higher than it really ever has been in quite a while. He wants to be a consistently top 15 team. Obviously, that did not even come close to fruition during the Herm Edwards era. And one thing that Ray Anderson maybe minimized, but I think is a huge reason, is a delegation of duties. Because with the NCAA investigation, there's still the huge elephant that has been in this room for over a year and probably is going to linger for a good few more months. I think that's a result of Herm Edwards having just way too much trust in his assistant coaches. And let's not forget, if we're going back to, I believe, June of last year, we're talking about 4 assistant coaches who had to resign or either fired directly because of the NCAA investigation. And then you have a 5th defensive coordinator, Antonio Pierce, who did leave on his own accord, but obviously being a recruiting coordinator with all these alleged violations, I mean, you can really just connect the dots as far as his involvement. So the notice of allegations by the NCAA may come by the end of the calendar year, may spill over to the first few months in 2023. So I thought that really Herm Edwards' job security was very tenuous as it is. Ray Anderson said that because the team did finish with a winning record last year, he didn't see any need to really dismiss Herm Edwards back then. But everybody knew that Herm Edwards was going to be in his last year in Tempe in 2022. What nobody expected is to have not only a 1-2 record in non-conference play, but also have a loss like they did last night against Eastern Michigan. So that loss to Eastern Michigan, which really led to Herm Edwards and the program parting ways, I almost feel like it was a microcosm, if you will, Nick, of just the tenure of Arizona State, of Herm Edwards, I should say, in Arizona State. So much promise that absolutely did not get fulfilled, and sometimes when disappointments did occur, they really occurred quite loudly, for lack of a better term. Where does ASU go from here on out? I think that Ray Anderson talked about hiring somebody that can really deal with the new realities of college football, with the NIL, with the transfer portal, maybe really introducing more analytics into the equation. And those are issues that I think that ultimately Ray Anderson, whether he'll say it publicly or clearly or not, did not feel that Herm Edwards was able to successfully deal with, and maybe that's part of what we saw over here during his tenure, let alone in this young 2022 season. I asked Ray Anderson, do you think your job search is going to be more challenging, again, because of this NCAA investigation, which technically has not ended? It's anybody's guess what kind of sanctions are going to come out of that investigation, but fair to say, it's not going to be a slap on the wrist for the Sun Devils, not even close. So what quality candidate, and this emphasis is on quality candidate, you can actually attract with this landscape in place? And look, let's be honest. Let's talk about the job security of Ray Anderson. I mean, I'm sure the University President, Dr. Michael Crow, not only is he not really pleased with what happened during the Herm Edwards era, but Herm Edwards is here because of his long relationship with Ray Anderson, and I feel that if you tie yourself to somebody who is no longer a head coach over here, I think that not exactly having a lot of job security and yet you're the athletic director now that has to make that next hire. So as you can see, it's a very, very complex situation here at ASU. I'm not saying it's never going to get solved in Tempe, but I don't expect this to be something that's going to get solved in the next year or two. And I know asking for ASU fans for patience is really might be asking a little too much. But nonetheless, I'm really curious to see what the new head coach hiring is going to be. Ray Anderson said he is going to be very, very involved in it. But make no mistake, I think Michael Crow is going to be very involved with it as well. And we'll see. I mean, do they try to get something in the pro model vein like they had with Herm Edwards, or maybe they go in an entire direction altogether? And more importantly, not to belabor the point, the NCAA investigation, which has not come to a conclusion yet. Sanctions have not been levied on the program yet. How much does that affect the job search? I think it's much more significant than what Ray Anderson described today. But we'll see. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this program, and I don't think that what happened today in terms of the decision to part ways with Herm Edwards, in terms of what Ray Anderson had to say on the topic, really offers a lot of clarity for the Sun Devil Nation.
Well, the season still goes on. Obviously, Coach Sean Iguano now at the helm, at least until the rest of the season. But we'll be there for every snap, every practice, every game. We still have all the coverage, so keep it locked in at DevilsDigest.com. Also drop a follow at Devils Digest on Twitter. But until Utah next Saturday, I've been Nick Borgia, that's Hoder Bino, and we appreciate you tuning in.